What's up, guys? It's Chase from Chase's Workshop, and in this video we're going to be continuing working on our B and G bender install on our Telecaster. If you haven't seen the first two videos, you can go right here and you can find them in the cards. I also put a link in the description where you can go find them as well. Now in this video what we're going to be doing is we're going to be installing the mount for the upper arm, which is this guy right here, this guy here, and this is the upper arm. And we're going to be installing the bearings for the string knob, which is this guy here. And we're also going to be installing the tuner right here. Now to start with, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to show you how the process that we're going to take here. Now to install this guy here, if you bought a router template from me, it comes like this. And basically what I've done is I've taken a punch and I've centered this hole right here to where it needs to be. Now you can take any kind of bit you want. If you want to use, I would use something at least a 1/4 inch or bigger. And I would drill this guy out on your drill press or whatever else that you've got. I'm assuming if you're doing this, you've got a drill press. But just drill that out with your drill press to whatever bit you're wanting to use. If it's a 1/4 inch or whatever, drill this guy out. And then you'll have something similar to this. Now, we used this part in the first video to align for our cavity on the back of this guitar. Now that we've got all that done, we're going to use this same one, and we're just going to drop it down into our cavity here. And then I'm going to take a punch, and I'm going to find the center of our hole for our mount. And that's what all this really guy is used for on that part, to figure out where it is on the back and to mount this, to center this guy up to where it needs to be. Okay, now that we've got it centered up, you can see I got the black dot there. And what we're going to do next is we're going to take a 1.25" Forstner bit. I bought this one on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description if you want to go buy one like it. But I would definitely buy higher quality bits when working with this stuff. I wouldn't buy, a set for $10 or something like that. I would at least get, I want to say this guy was probably about 10 or 15 bucks. I can't remember exactly. But spend some money on them. This is an Irwin. I use a lot of their stuff. I use it for my router bits are all Irwins. And they're just really good tools, I think. But basically what we're going to use this guy for is we're going to use this to countersink this flange that you see right here on the top of our mount. And I've got this guy marked to where it's pretty much be flush with this guy once I get to this mark here. So we're going to start with our big bit. Don't start with the small one, because if you do, you've lost the center point for your bit. If I started with this bit here and drilled this thing out to depth and then tried to use this to countersink this, I don't have anything for this bit point to write on. So I always start with the bigger bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this guy, like I said, I'm going to drill this down until I get this guy flush and get it countersunk into the actual bottom of our route here. And then once I do that, I'm going to take a 1/2 inch bit and I'm going to drill out for this spot where the actual bolt goes in. Now when you're drilling this guy out, make sure that you don't drill this tip past your full depth, because if you try to drill this thing all the way down to full depth, you have a tendency of this guy right here to poke out the front of your guitar, and we do not want that. So I'm going to drill this guy down as much as I can and try to keep that tip inside of the depth of our mount here. And then once I get done doing that, I'm actually going to take a 1/2 inch router bit and I'm going to use that in my drill press to finish out this bottom of this hole to where we basically have a flat hole at the bottom there. And then when we get done doing that, I'll take some epoxy. I'll epoxy this guy in there. And then these screws here, they don't come with the kit, but you can find at Lowe's or Home Depot or anywhere some really short wood screws. And more than likely, whatever size screw you get, you're going to have to cut them to fit in here, because there's not many that will actually be the right depth right here anyways. But with that being said, the main thing you want to do once you get this guy mounted in there is you want to take an 1/8 inch bit or probably not an 1/8, probably like a 1/16 inch bit, and pre-drill these holes to where these screws are going to go into this mount. And then you're going to take those screws and you can cut them to the right size. You don't need the point on it anymore, and because you've already got the hole pre-drilled, and then you can just screw it in that way. And it just adds more protection, more strength to that joint. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount our bearings for our string knob, which is this guy here. Now, to do this, I'm going to be using a 5/8 inch Forstner bit. And again, like I said, if there's one that you're not going to skimp on, make sure it's this one. Make sure you get one that's high quality and that's very accurate. You want this one to be as accurate as possible. Now, kind of similar to the 1/8" bit, I put a mark on this guy roughly in the area of where my bearing depth is, as you can see there. Hoping you can see that mark right there. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take this bit, chuck it up in my drill press, and I'm going to drill this guy down to that depth so I can countersink this bearing into that hole. Then once we've done that, we're going to flip the guy over and do the same thing on the other side, but there's one step I want to go over with you right quick. Now, if you've got a guitar like this one, I bought, this is a Fender Squier Telecaster, you want to make sure that you at least score this finish and try to score it as much as you can. Try to get below, try to get as close to the wood as you can just by hand, just by putting this guy in there and turning it. Now, anytime you're drilling into a finish like this, especially with a big bit like this, you have the tendency of either breaking some of the finish off or spider webbing it, basically shattering the finish and cracking the finish or doing things like that. And that's one thing we want to stay away from. So not only will I score this guy like this, I actually take some tape and I will put some tape over the top of it to help prevent that as well. And then once we get that hole drilled, we'll put this guy in there. I'll probably take some super glue, put a little dab on the outside of this guy on the top and on the bottom. As I'm doing that, I will take my knob and actually put it through there so that I know that these two bearings are aligned underneath, if that makes sense. And you don't have to push it all up in there. You can actually take this guy, put that through there, and then basically hold it in there and make sure that this is going to go in. You just don't want this guy to dry and then try to put your knob in and realize that one of your bearings is a little crooked and your knob won't go in. So now I'll go out in the shop and I'll show you how I'll drill all this stuff out. So I've got it checked in now. Spinning right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy, and you can see our mark on there. So I'm going to take this guy, I can see my mark when this thing's spinning. So I'm just going to try to get it as close as I can down in there, and I'm going to test it a few times before. Take my stop off. Test it a few times before to make sure that we're lined up right. Okay, I'm in the hole right there. So here we go. Down in there and see about where I'm at there. Still got a little ways to go. Right there. Now I'm going to test it again. Maybe just a little bit more, not a lot, just a little bit. Like I said, this is kind of trial and error. You just want to keep going. Just a little bit more. There. So that should be about pretty good right there. I like it. So now you can see, I hope, how I have countersunk this guy in here. Now it's in there backwards. It's actually going to go in there like this, but I'm just using this to where I can kind of get an idea of where I'm at on this part here. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to finish drilling this hole with our 1/2" Forstner bit. Now the main thing you want to do here, just make sure you don't drill through the front of the guitar. That's the main go here. So in order to make sure we don't do that, very simply, I'm just going to take my bit here. I'm going to run it down about as far as I can. And I've still got about 1/8 of an inch. I don't know if you can see it or not. I've got about 1/8 of an inch from where the tip of my Forstner bit is to the front of the guitar. So that should give me plenty of room to drill this guy down. As you can tell, I didn't get very deep with it, but now we're going to use our other bit. I put a mark on here right there to about where the depth of our guy needs to be. I'll put a stop on it just so I know it won't go, at least I know it won't go through the guitar. It should give me plenty of room for this guy to go. Okay, so I'm hoping you can see that. That guy should be able to press down into there. Now, one thing that my bit, as you can tell on my bit, it's got a groove. It's got a groove right here to where it makes a little nipple, I guess you would say, down inside of there. If you can see it right there. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this little chisel right here. I'm just gonna stick it down in here and see if I can't break that little nipple off by hand. And there we go. Pretty simple. Pretty easy to do. Alright, now I need to make sure my depth is about right. See what my depth is here. It's pretty close. And try to see how much more room I have if I need to drill this guy out anymore. There to there. I'm a little shy of having this guy to fit straight down in there. So what I want to do is I want to take and get a measurement. Roughly. I've got roughly that much more room to drill out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to drill this thing out just a little bit deeper, just to make sure that I have enough room for this guy to fit down in there. So we're going to put our router bit back in. I'm going to take this guy, I'll try to get it about where it was before, about right there. Let me make sure. I'm going to drop this guy one. Okay, so I've cut out just a little bit more. Very carefully, I'm going to take my chisel again and try to break that little nipple off down there in the bottom. Very carefully, like so. Now, let's re-measure it. What I'm measuring here is I'm measuring from bottom of our countersink to the bottom of our hole, and just making sure that I've got enough room. And as you can tell there, I've got at least 30-second maybe, so it ought to be pretty good. Now that that's done, we're going to move to our bearings back here. So I'm going to unchuck this router bit, or 5/8 Forstner bit. So there we go, see our mark on it. Now I don't have to use my depth stop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get this guy as close as I can to the depth of our bearings. I'm just going to center it up. Put it on. We'll test it and see where it's at. And this back one doesn't have to be as flush. You can leave it like that if you want to. It'll give you a little bit more room, a little bit more material between the, a little bit more wood between the bearings. I might drill this one down just a little bit more. Like I said, it doesn't have to be exactly flush. Alright, now we're going to move to the front. We'll get some tape. Now that I've kind of scored this guy already, I'm going to take some tape and I'm going to put over the top of it. This is just going to try to help prevent this guy from busting or chipping any of the finish. So we don't want that. Now, just put her on. Just go really slow with this. Don't try to force this. Especially at the beginning. kind of clean my bit up a little bit. Find my mark here. And we're gonna line this guy back on here, like so. Make sure the bottom of this cavity is blown out too before you try to put your bearing in there, because sometimes junk can get in there and give you a false measurement. You see, I always do that. I always make sure I try to align it before. I don't just start it and go back into my hole here. Try to get it centered up, hold it down, cut it on, and then bring it down. Still a little bit shy there. I'm having trouble seeing that mark, so I'm going to take a piece of tape, put it about where it's at. So like I said, just bring it down. Try to align in that hole before you start. Bring it up. Pull this tape off. I still need to go down just a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. Alright, so there we go. Got that guy pretty much countersunk. And then now what we got to do is we need to drill the rest of this hole right here out. So this knob is a 1/4 right there. So I'm probably going to use, we'll start with a 1/4 and see how it does. Change my bit out. Got a 1/4 inch brad point bit. This 1/4 inch bit. The brad point's kind of sharp, and I don't know if it's going to ride in that hole good. I know that tip will get in there and follow it. So I'm going to change that out to this bit instead. All the way through, I'm going to flip it over and go the rest of the way to the back. So there we go. Now you can see, hopefully, the hole there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knob and just see if it'll go through that hole. Yeah, it'll work good. Okay, so that part's done. Alright, so I hope you can see here what I've done. Basically, I went in here and I've cleaned this guy out as much as I can with some chisels and things like that, and just tried to clean it up as good as I can. This wood that they use on this guitar is really furry, so I've got a lot of fur spots coming up. I'm gonna have to sand off and all that kind of stuff. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna dry fit all this stuff and make sure it fits in here. I've got my part here, my mount. I'm just gonna get it lined up in that hole, press it down in there, and I'm a little above the countersink, but I think it'll be all right. Now I'm gonna take my screw, I'm gonna screw it in there. I'm just gonna make sure that it doesn't rise up when it bottoms out, so we're good. And if it does, what you would do is you would just pull this guy out and then take a chisel and clean the bottom of it up a little bit, and then just keep doing that. Or you can come in here and you can shave off this part right here with a belt sander or a side grinder or anything you want to get rid of that. And I'm gonna put my upper arm on here. I'm just gonna set it in its spot, screw it in there until it bottoms out. Now we got our upper arm in. I'm going to put in the 1/4 threaded rod here. It goes into the front. I want to put on the arm here. And I'm just going to make sure I get good movement. Make sure it's in there right. I got good movement. So we're good there. Everything looks good. So I'm going to pull it back apart. I'm going to take our mount off. Now, what I was talking about earlier about putting some screws in this guy. Now, I found these things. These are just some regular wood screws. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 1/16 inch bit on my drill, and I'm going to countersink these, or not countersink, I'm going to pre-drill these holes, and then I'm going to take a pair of cutters and probably cut about half of this threads off. And that's just going to, so I know that it won't go all the way through to the front of the guitar. I just want to get rid of this point and take away some of the screw. So what I would do when doing this, take a piece of tape, but you can see this, and I'm gonna go probably, I don't know, about that far down into there, about right in there. I'm just gonna pre-drill it to that point on all 3 of these. Now if you've got a punch, you can punch the center mark. Let me grab mine. I got this, this will work. I'm gonna just punch the center of these holes just to kind of give me somewhere to start at. Give me a start point. I'm just gonna take my drill and we're gonna drill these guys out. Simple enough. Got to get up underneath here so I can see this one. Okay, now I've got my screw here. I'm gonna try to do about half of it, I guess. I basically just took a pair of these guys and I'm cutting these screws about halfway. So there's my 3 cut screws. Got that pre-drilled. Okay, now I'm just gonna start these screws in here. We're just dry fitting this thing again. Like I said, not putting this thing totally together yet. All right, screw number 2. Screw number 2, and then we're gonna do screw number 3. Now, like I said, all this, I'm just cut this about to the depth of the bottom of our mount. Let's see if I can start this one here. And we pre-drilled the hose and we screwed it in there. So that guy is in there. Now, if you want to add a little bit more stability to it, you can take some JB weld or something like that and put it in there too. These screws should hold it plenty for what we're trying to do here. And there we go. We are good to go there. Now what I've got to do is pull this guy back apart. Screws out of here. And I want to show you how I did the screws again, just so you just to make sure that you understand it. Now, I basically took the screws and cut them to right at about the depth that our part goes down, close to it. And that way I know it won't, at least I know it won't go through the front of the guitar. Like I said, if you want to use some epoxy in here or something like that, you can do that as well. Just make sure if you use something dark that it can bleed through into your finish if you're not careful. So just be careful with that. If you're going to use epoxy, I would use some clear epoxy or something. Unless you have a painted guitar. If you got a painted guitar, you could use JB weld or anything else. Not saying that it would seep through to that side, but it very well possibly could. Now on the back here, we're going to mount our bearings like so. And then we're going to try to put our knob, make sure our knob will go through there like so. Now, you can see there, it's a little tight. I think it's because that wood, remove some more of that wood around where the knob goes through. You can see there, it's kind of tight. That's eventually that's what it's going to look like sitting in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a drill bit and try to drill that out a little bit bigger. All right, so this is a 5/16 bit. So now I ought to have plenty of room for that knob to go through. We do. I'm just going to clean this up with a chisel as much as I can. Now I'm going to go ahead and mount this top bearing, but I'm going to wait on the bottom. And the reason why is because I'm going to paint the inside of this guy so that I can't have anything in there if I paint it. So I'm going to mount this one and show you how to do it. And then I'm going to paint the inside of the guitar, and then we will install the other one. Okay, so I've got some super glue. Basically all I'm gonna do is, let's get this guy about where I think I wanted it at. And like I said, these bearings are not like moving a ton. I think it's imperative to at least make it nice. You know what I mean? Because it's gotta be better than it riding on wood. I'm just gonna put some tape on here just to try to protect this area in case I drip some glue on it. Try to cut this out as easily as possible here. I should just left the tape on it from the drill, right? Close enough. So if y'all go down there, yeah, we're good. I just want to protect the finish at all costs. Now what I want to do is I don't want to fill this whole thing with glue because we want this inside part to spin. So we want to at least keep the glue on the outside of this bearing. And all this is doing is holding this guy in there. It's not a huge ordeal. I'm just gonna put a dab there, put a dab there, dab there, and a dab there. I'm just gonna set this bearing in there, hold it down for a few seconds. Now, again, right here is a good idea not to use any kind of glue that's gonna have a color to it, because if it does, it can seep into the grain underneath the finish and it's gonna look like crap. We don't want that. So there we go, we've got that in there. Now that's where the knob's gonna sit. Now the way we'll mount the bottom one is, I'm gonna let that dry. We'll turn this thing over with the knob in it, do our glue and everything just like we did, and then we'll take this and slide it over the top of it and let it set up with the knob through it. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna paint this guy, and then when I come back, we'll install everything in here, and it'll be in for the final. All right, so you can see I pretty much got this guy painted now. What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna line up for our tuner. And all I've done is I put a piece of tape on here and I marked the center of our thickness of our guitar. I'm gonna go ahead and mount our upper arm in, just so we can kind of get an idea of where we need to line this guy to, and it'll give us a better idea of where we need to drill in at. Now, if you saw the first video, you saw where I stacked this guy up on top of some cardboard, kind of the exact same thing I'm doing right now. And I've just got a stack of cardboard here. I'm gonna lay my drill. I've got an 1/8 inch bit, and I've also got a 3/8 inch Forstner bit, which will be used to drill out for this insert here. I want this guy to go in pretty straight. So as you can tell here, when this thing's in, when it's been activated, the angle of it changes. So I'm gonna try to go as much as I can square. It doesn't have to be perfectly square, as long as it'll stop it when it gets there. But I'm gonna try to go right around, probably maybe more up in here a little bit. I might move this tape up a little bit. So I kinda wanna be on the top as much as possible, so we can see there. So when you're holding the guitar, I want it to be kind of maybe right around in there. Now what I need to make sure is that when I drill, I'm gonna be in the area to stop it. So let's do this. Let's move our mark right there. Move it over just a little bit. I want to make sure that when it comes through, it's going to hit this arm here. So I might go just above that line, and it should hit pretty close. So I'm going to go just a hair above my line, and I want to go about right there. So I'm just going to drill this guy down. So you can see where it came through at. It came through right there. And it's going to hit the very tip of our arm. So now I've got my 3/8 bit, and I've already got this guy marked to pretty much the depth of this insert. And I might go a little bit deeper just to try it out, see how it does, because I'm thinking about trying to maybe countersink this into it just a little bit. So I'm going to go the full depth of this up to that tape right there. And then I might go just a little bit deeper. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to unchuck our bit. And then I'm thinking that tape's going to hold pretty good. I might pull this tape off and put another piece on here just to help. This is another area where the actual finish can bust out, and you don't want it to bust. So I'm just going to start out slow. Let it tear into that finish a little bit before you just hog it out. Once you get to the wood, you can go as fast as you want to, really. Like right there. So here we go. Now I'm going to take another bit, cut this guy on, zero it out. I'm going to get about a 3/16 to maybe even a 1/4 inch. You could use a 1/4, be fine. And I'm going to finish drilling this hole out from that 1/8 inch to where this will fit. Just always remember when you're stacking Forstner bits like this, always start with the biggest one first. Start with the 3/8, and then we're going to step down to our 1/4 inch to go the rest of the way through. All right, so here's my 1/4 inch. And we're just going to set it back on here like we did. Get it in there and try to center it up in that hole. And then just pull this guy out just in case I go all the way through. I don't want to hit the arm. I just go slow when you get toward the bottom. If you don't, you'll bust it out and it'll kind of splinter. You don't want that. And there we go. I'll just take some chisels and kind of clean this bit up, and then I'll put another coat of paint over there where you can't see it, hide it a little bit better, and we'll be done. So a little paint, clean that area out pretty good. You can see it's kind of got a little chip right there. So we're just gonna dab some paint back on it. I got a couple spots I'm gonna touch up right quick. I'm even gonna put some in this hole right here, just to, in case you see it from the sides, you won't see wood, you'll see the black. I had a lot of people ask about when they're buying these kits about the strap trim piece, which is this guy here, and I'm working on making a design for that, so just bear with me. And like I said, I'm trying to get all these parts, and I'm trying to make this thing as affordable as possible, so it's, the more I add to it, the more it's going to cost, but it is what it is, I guess. Anything to make it look better. And I'm also working on getting covers for the back as well, so that'll be in the future as well, hopefully. Now that we got that done, we're going to go ahead and glue in this guy here, but before I do that, I want to make sure that I've got enough room for my arm to mount down there. So I'm going to put my knob through here. So let's see how this guy does here. It's almost perfect. I might have to get a little bit out of it because I just think it's hitting right there. I might have to sand that down a little bit right there and get a little bit of relief right there. But it's looking pretty good, actually. So I'm gonna pull that back out. My main thing was I was worried about it hitting the back of this right here. And we got plenty of room there. We did a good job on measuring it. Now we're gonna mount our other bearing. Just like we did the other one, we're going to put a little glue on the outside of that spot, and then we're going to slide the bearing. I'm going to pull the knob out to do it. I'm going to slide the bearing down in there. I'm just going to put a little dab about right there, there, and there. All right, let's put our knob back through. We're going to take our other one and we're going to drop it down on there and press it in. And then make sure she'll spin. It's going to do pretty good. Once you do this, the knob can be kind of a pain in the butt to get out, but just push on it real hard and it'll come out. That's kind of what holds it in, though, is the two bearings help hold it tight so it doesn't move back and forth. So there we go. We've installed the knob. I'm going to polish this guy up some more. This is one I actually had laying around in the shop, so I'm going to use it instead of making a brand new one for it. But that's it. So we're just going to basically put it back in there like we had it. Now we're going to put our screws in. Screws back in here. 2 and 3. So there's our mount back in. Right there. Now we're going to put this guy in here and just make sure everything should fit good right there. Now we're going to install our tuner wood insert right here. This thing can be kind of a pain in the butt too, so just be aware. But all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this guy and then just start threading it in. You can use a big wide screwdriver to do it. So I'm going to set it down here, go find a big wide screwdriver. I don't have a wide screwdriver, but I do have a wide chisel that's I don't use much, so I'm going to use that. Alright, so that's in there now. I need to countersink it some more. So there is our tuner. I'm going to try to find another screwdriver where I can sink that down in there a little bit better. That's all I've got. I couldn't find anything big enough to do it, so here I am. So there's the tuner installed. It turned out pretty good. Like I said, I got to sink it down in there a little bit more. So now we're going to put in our upper arm. We're going to put in our lower arm. All right, there we go. So we've got our upper arm in here. We've got our lower arm in. Now this is what I was talking about with the difference between the B benders and the G benders. This sits higher up here. The B bender, this would be down about to that second screw hole right there, and so you have more room. But with this being a G, we had to move this whole mechanism up a little bit. So if anything, you might have to come in here and make a relief or something like that up in the top of this guy. And I'm probably going to too anyways right here, just to relieve a little bit of the spot there to where it'll move. Well, all right, guys, that's about it for this video. In the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to do the connecting rod, which is this guy here. We're going to install the tremolo spring, and we're going to basically put this thing together, string it up, and get all that stuff done. And we're going to get our tuner set. We're going to actually cut these parts here for the front, for where our strap piece is, where that comes out right there. And basically have this thing ready to play in the next video. And then I'm going to make a little relief right here for this guy so we have more room. It is catching right there a little bit. So I'll just sand that back and then paint, and it should be good to go. So yeah, that'll be the next video. And then I might do another video in a couple of weeks or so about making a back cover for this guy. 'Cause like I said, that's something I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to start making the back covers, and I'm looking at a way to make a strap trim piece right here to cover this spot here to where it'll just look better. You know what I mean. But guys, if you have any questions or comments, send me an email. You can find my email in the description. Also my website in the description if you want to order a kit. Just send me an email, whatever you want to, ask me any questions or leave it in the comments, however you want to do it. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a like. If you liked it, please subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.